Welcome, 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 welcome all. This is Tribal Gamer, and I'm joined by my comrade, my friend, the brains of the whole podcast, the amphibian phenom, Frogman, who is with Silver Gecko Gaming. If you guys want to check out his Twitch site, he streams all the time, about 12 hours a day almost. He's also on a few other platforms. Frogman, if you want to chime in here, where else can they find you?
You can find me on Twitter, on YouTube, and there's a Facebook group as well. There's a Discord channel that you can find on the Twitch channel. There's a link there for it there if you want to talk to me there. That's probably the easiest way to get a hold of me.
All right. And Silver Gecko Gaming, that's silver with a Y, not an I, guys. So go check them out.
Yep.
And welcome to the first episode of the Essence of Gaming podcast. It's a podcast that me and Frog decided we wanted to start because we just wanted to talk about video games and kind of like the cultural influence it's had on our country and honestly the world now. It's become a world renowned weird culture change that started back, man. I think the first Nintendo system was in like 1984 or something like that. Maybe it was in television. Gaming's been around for a long time. Most of us that game have a passion for it. We like different styles of games. It's kind of an evolution from back in the day when there was checkers and chess. Then it turned into the board games like Monopoly and Life. And then we got this video game and it changed the world. And so we wanted to kind of talk about some of those changes video games have caused in the world, influences, good and bad. Not everything's good about video games. But the first episode with it being what May, is it the
14th?
13th or 14th? May
14th.
14th is when we're recording this. Um, Pretty soon here, a game is going to be coming out that has been anticipated for about 10 years. And anybody who is a sports fan, especially a college sports fan, knows what I'm talking about. And that is EA Sports College Football 25. And we wanted to not talk about necessarily the game coming out, which we will. We'll give you all the juicy details. They're supposed to be coming out with a release date here in a couple days. But we wanted to talk about the influence this game has had on the US and these college players and them now being able to get paid through NIL, because it if you break it down, it started with this game. And so we're going to talk a lot about that. But first, we kind of wanted to talk about ourselves a little bit, give you an idea of who we are and why you should listen to us about video games. I've been playing video games since, man, I was probably 6 years old when I first got my Nintendo system. My first video game I ever got was, I believe it's called Black Manta. And it was like this ninja uh that was a side scroller, kind of like Ninja Gaiden, but it was like kid friendly. So like the bad guys were, doing drugs and stuff, and the message that the ninja was saying, it was literally, don't do drugs, kids. So it, it was geared towards the younger crowd. But
How far we've come.
right. Yeah, now what they allow in video games is
GTA
ridiculous
6.
sometimes.
Oh,
Right. And so I've been playing since I was young. I used to play Halo in tournaments. I've won a couple state tournaments in Arizona when the original Halo was out. I've been a gamer all my life. I've been mainly a Xbox gamer since the Xbox has come out. That's the system I choose. That's what I've stuck by since it's come out. Yes, I'm a fanboy, so sorry, PlayStation people. Um, I've played some of the PlayStation games. I've owned a PS2. Never really was a PC gamer though. I never had the ability to own a computer that could play the games that I wanted to play on PC. But I know Frogman here, he's all about PC games. Frogman, why don't you tell him about yourself a little bit?
All right. Well, I think I was probably, you know, 5, 6, 7-ish, kind of somewhere in that 5 to 7 range, I would guess, when I first kind of got into video games. And I believe it was an NES, a regular Nintendo, back in the day that we first had it at our house. We had Mario, and it was just that. I think we just had at least the first two Mario games. My next door neighbor, when we lived it there at the time, had a Super Nintendo, so we were there at her house all the time. We played Donkey Kong and all the Super Nintendo, Super Mario games, like all those
Oh,
things.
yes. Mario Kart, yep.
Oh yeah, Mario Kart. They had the Diddy Kong. What was it called? Diddy Kong Land, Diddy
Country,
Kong Country. Yeah, yeah.
yeah,
Donkey
country,
Kong
yep.
Country. That's what it was. Donkey Kong Country. Yeah, so we'd play those. Played that all the time at their house. We had, back in the day, they had this weird thing where you could go to a store and pay $5 and get 5 games for 5 nights. And anytime we had sleepovers with friends, we'd always get all excited and go rent 5 different games that we'd never played and bring them home and play them. Around that same time, I had a babysitter that would bring their Sega Genesis over sometimes. We'd play some games there. Uh, that was kind of my intro to games, and from that point on, I've owned all different systems: Nintendo, PlayStation, Xboxes of different kinds. I don't really have a favorite. I'm not really a fanboy of anything in particular, but I just kind of play whatever on whatever system it runs. What I want to play the best is kind of where I'll go, and I've kind of been in tech and computers the majority of my life, so I've generally had a computer that I had access to when I was growing up. So I did play a lot more of the computer games growing up, like Age of Empires or World of Warcraft, those kinds of games where you could pull your big old computer to your friend's house for the weekend and spend 4 or 5 hours setting them all up, making sure they all can talk to each other and plugged into each other. But then you'd sit there and play games for 2 or 3 days. Kids these days aren't going to get that experience ever, but it was a lot of fun back then. That's kind of where I got into video games, I think, was just kind of starting with Mario, like a lot of people, and just kind of evolving from there to RPGs, sports games, and adventure games, everything in between.
The good old LAN party.
Oh
You
yeah.
ask anybody in their 20s and under, like 25 and under, and you ask them what a LAN party is, they're gonna think you're exchanging lamps at a party or something like that. They do not know what a LAN party is or
No
even
way.
landline. Well, awesome. And just so you guys know, Frogman by far the brains of this operation. He's the one that's gonna be answering a lot of my questions and bringing in a lot of the clips that you're gonna see, just so that this isn't coming from us. This bullshit's not coming from us. It's coming from actual articles out there. And so if you're not watching this and you're only listening, please take a chance and watch the video. There's some really good articles that are going to be posted up here that you guys can take a look at. And our whole goal of this podcast is not to say, what is right or wrong, but more as to we want to give our opinions on these cultural influences, as well as we want to hear from you guys and your opinions. So at the end, we're gonna toss out some information for you guys to reach out to us, and please do. We want to come up with ideas and topics that you guys want to listen to. I mean, the beauty of this podcast is we can literally talk about anything with games. And it's not going to be a podcast where we talk about, how to beat a game or a tips and tricks hotline or anything like that. Yes, kids, back in the day, we'd buy magazines and it had a phone number you could call and get tips and tricks on how to
I
beat
kind
these,
of miss those days sometimes.
right? Um, but no, we want to gear this towards the audience out there. We don't really think there's a podcast like this where we get to talk about how video games have impacted our lives. And yes, good and bad. There's sad stories out there too, and we're going to touch up on those. We're going to touch up on, how the industry has created a whole new sport. We're going to touch up on just how college football players are getting paid, which I guess that we'll take that and we'll segue into what we're talking about today, which is EA Sports College Football 25. So as of right now, we're thinking in a couple days they're going to release a date, and we'll give you an update if they do. But as of right now, there is no release date, but there's a lot of rumors out there that it's going to be sometime in like June. Now, Froggy, I'm gonna put some money down. Okay,
All
maybe
right.
not some money, but how about steak and a beer with you? If I'm spot on, you owe me a steak and a beer. If I'm
All right.
wrong, I will buy you a steak and a beer.
Sounds good.
But I'm gonna go with June 25th. What do you think?
A little bit before the season starts. I think that probably makes sense. I mean, they're not gonna, if they want to get in on all the hype, they're not going to release it too much after the season started because that would kind of be, I don't know, I don't see the point in that. But yeah, I think that's probably right around where I would guess it would be, somewhere in that, a couple
Well, I
days
mean,
before, a couple days after, sometime in that range.
here's my method of thinking. So Madden traditionally has always come out in August,
Okay.
right?
And
And
season
that's
starts in
when
what? This, no.
the
When does
preseason
it?
starts at in August.
Oh, okay. That's
So,
right.
so it usually comes out a couple weeks before the preseason starts. And
Mm-hmm.
then you get the whole preseason. People are gaming away, leveling up their teams, whatever you want to call it. And then obviously the football season starts. And they want that like month period beforehand. But here's what I'm thinking, because the college football season starts in September, end of August. If they release at the beginning of August with Madden, let's be honest, they're probably going to lose out on sales.
Yeah.
And so I think it's got to be at least a month prior. And with it being gone so long, I think they're going to want to give the players as much playing time before Madden comes out. So we were talking offline about, is there going to be a economic system, which means you spend money to get these coins and you use these coins to upgrade your teams or get, fancy shit for your players, right?
Players or packs or whatever.
Yeah. And knowing EA, as you and I were talking about, they're probably going to put something like that in there. And I think if they have that extra month and a half of them playing this game, they're going to spend as much money as they can in that month and a half before Madden comes out.
Yeah.
Because when Madden comes out, you're gonna be able to, import your player from Road to Glory into Madden and
Yeah.
then
The
all
draft
that kind of good shit.
classes,
Yeah,
everything
exactly.
else.
So,
That was so fun back in the day.
oh, I loved it. Well, let's reminisce a little bit. Like, let's talk about NCAA college football.
Was it
2014, I think
14?
was
Was
the
that the
last
last
one.
one?
Yeah, yeah, it
Or
was
14,
2014.
14?
So it's
Yeah.
been 10 years. And the really cool thing about that game is you can still see people online on YouTube playing that game to this day
Oh,
because
yeah.
that's how loyal and faithful they are to college football. I mean, you got some places like Nebraska where college football is like the pro team. Like that's what they have. They don't have a pro football
No
team.
way. I
Yeah,
just looked it up to be out of curiosity here. It's going for about $80 online. A
80
10-year old
bucks.
10-year old video game for
80
Xbox
bucks.
360.
Well, and you want to know the funny thing is I used to work at GameStop
Uh-huh.
when NCAA football was really, really big. And
Yeah.
every year when the new game was about to come out, GameStop would drop the trade-in value price for it because they knew they were about to get a shit ton of
Oh, yeah.
NCAA games. And I
Here we
guarantee
go.
you NCAA 14 was the exact same thing. There was shit tons on the shelf, and then when
Yep.
when the lawsuit happened, which we'll talk about
Its
here
price
soon,
is 134 for this one.
holy
Does this
cow.
show it up for you here?
Yep.
Okay. Yeah, 79, 134, 74 to 79, 220,
I,
230.
I mean, that's crazy, right?
Yeah.
And now like that price is probably going to go down now that they're going to be remaking the game, right?
Yeah.
I would imagine.
Yeah. Unless the game's just terrible, I guess. But I mean, you'd hope that it's going to be a big improvement on that one, given
Yeah,
10
from
years
10
of
years ago. I
potential.
mean, and I wonder how long they've been working on it because like you got to think like they didn't just stop working
Yeah.
on it.
Let
They
me
probably just put
let
most of
me
their
take a look here
resources
and see
into
if I
them, but
can pull anything up here. I'm kind of curious now.
so the fact that this game has been gone for 10 years is still this popular. I can't imagine the the lines or what the queues on Amazon, whatever you call it
Oh
nowadays,
yeah.
for this game
Or the
that's going to be
digital
coming out
purchases
June
that
25th for a steak and a beer.
I mean, now what's great is like back then you had to go to somewhere like GameStop, if you wanted to get or some, Walmart, whatever, stand in line, wait for it to come out. Here, you can order it ahead of time and it'll download and then you'll be able to play at midnight as soon as it is
Yep.
out. So
Well, and that's
there's going to
kind
be
of like
that
the
too.
beauty of the technology progress in video games. Like, there's like these kids today don't know how long you had to wait for
Oh
a
yeah.
game to load up on the PlayStation. Like, remember Grand Theft Auto loading
Oh
up?
yeah.
Like, you'd wait 20 minutes, but that 20 minutes would be so worth it
Yeah.
because like you were doing things you haven't done in
Or
video.
blowing in the cartridges for 20 minutes trying to get it
Oh
to just plug
yeah.
in or
Yep. You
all
know,
those little tricks.
and what's funny is like nowadays, like there's so many repair shops that fix those systems, and it's such an easy fix. But like back in the day, it was hard to find a repair shop for something like that. Like it just wasn't a high demand thing, and it
Yeah.
probably was really expensive to get your system fixed. So we were blowing.
Yeah, I don't see anything specifically about how long it's been in development, but normally games like this, they've been working on them for a while, at least a couple years. If they know they aren't having like a yearly release, usually, like for example, Baldur's Gate 3, another game, came out recently to all kinds of praise, and I believe it was like 8 years they worked on it, or something like that. So it could be
I
a decent chunk of time.
I believe it. Like I've heard nothing but great things. I have that's one game I want to play that I
Oh,
haven't.
huh.
Because it's a little out of my comfort zone when it comes to like my style of video games. I'm not a huge fan of like the top down, like
Yeah,
the Diablo games. Like I'll
Dungeon
play
and
them,
Dragon type
but they
stuff.
kind of become repetitive. But what I heard from Baldur's Gate is that the storyline's amazing, and I think modern day video games they lack the storyline a little bit.
Oh yeah.
They're more about investing in like the graphics and making things look as real as possible and the physics of the game. They
Hmm.
they don't hire good storytellers anymore, or they're not as passionate in telling the story as much.
Yeah.
There are some really good storytelling franchises out there like Metal Gear Solid. Those were always great stories.
Oh
Um,
yeah.
those types of games. But there's a lot of games now that like you're just dropped into a world and they say figure it out.
Yep.
Like, all right, let's go.
And some of those are a lot of fun too, but
Yeah.
I
Oh
enjoy
yeah. Because
I enjoy all kinds of games, but yeah, the ones that really spend time on the story, I think the biggest part of that is that it's either gonna make your game or it's gonna break your game. You're gonna spend all this time doing it, no one's gonna care,
yep.
or it's gonna be what everybody remembers it for. So I think that's kind of a kind of a scare point for some developers that they just don't want to invest a lot into it because they don't know if it's gonna be worth it or not.
Well, and I think the gaming community now, with such games like World of Warcraft, Elder Scrolls Online, Final Fantasy Online, you kind of like you've built these communities where you kind of almost build your own storylines and
Yeah.
you create rivals with other clans and yes, they have story implemented in it, but you create your own memories and stuff through like living out this fantasy world that you're going through and even through like dungeon crawl games like you still have a great time and that's kind of where the story is at.
Yeah,
That's where the
especially when you're with your friends, playing like
yes,
some of those
exactly.
dungeon crawl games together, like Diablo or something. I just recently told someone, I think it was someone on my stream, I had said, you know, I am enjoying this story, and it's with Diablo 4 I was talking about, and there's, I want to get in and see what the next expansion is because I want to know what the story is about and how they left it off. I'm curious what happens, but you don't play those kinds of games for the story generally. Like that's not
Right.
what you look for in a game like
Matter of
that.
fact, I skipped through the story
Yeah,
because
most
it's
games like
always
that. Yeah.
text and it's like usually still frame pictures, and I
Hmm.
don't really get into it that much. Like
Yeah.
I'm there to just, kill a bunch of things and,
Have
level up my
fun,
game.
get the next
Yeah, have
shiny
fun with it.
boots.
All right, so let's get back to NCAA football because we're gonna do this on every podcast where we just go down these wormholes. So
Yep.
let's
Sounds
go back to
good.
NCAA football. And let's talk about like what they used to have and what they're doing with this new game. So what people can kind of look forward to. So I remember in NCAA 14 that what they were kind of known for were a few things. One was the pageantry, like bringing in like the mascots, the
Oh,
bands, the
yeah.
stadiums, the atmosphere, the significant traditional things that makes college football such a unique and beloved sport in the United States.
Hmm.
And I remember the recruiting system was the most fun I've ever had going against a buddy, like
Oh, yeah.
fighting for the top prospect. And then, you finally win him. And then the second game of the season, dude gets hurt and your backup quarterback is trash. And then you're having a long season.
Yep.
But I remember, the dynasty mode and having to battle for recruits. And I hope, and I think you had told me, and we'll find out here in a second, that they're bringing that back, hopefully. And then like the last thing I remember is being able to download rosters
Oh,
and put
yeah.
them in the game of your team. So, you know, back in the day, players weren't allowed to get paid for their name, image, and likeness. And so they could only put the player's number, but it looked like them. It walked like them. It
Yep.
threw like them. They were left-handed. It was left-handed in the game. They
Same
were
weight.
right-handed. Like played the same. Like it was them, other than their name being on them. And so like those were like the three main things that I kind of remember about NCAA 14 that I hope is brought back in some way, shape, or form. What about you, Froggy?
Yeah, those were definitely things that I remember and really enjoyed as well. Another part that I really liked, I believe it was 14. Well, I think all of them you could do this, but was playing through, you play through a few seasons as like the dynasty mode or franchise mode or whatever it was called back then. And you have, these players that you develop over the time and they go off to the pros. And then when Madden comes out, you can take those roster files and import them into the game. So you play a few
Yeah,
seasons in Madden, and then you have these
yeah.
star players you develop that now go into the pro game that you can then get on your teams there or see, go into the pro game, or you could simulate, careers and then simulate the pro career of a player, or, things like that that I had a lot of fun with. And I think I know it was basketball I did it on, and I believe I did it on NCAA football as well.
Yeah, I do remember that. And I also remember NCAA was like one of the first games that had like create your player and you only played as your player in the game.
Oh yeah,
It
yeah.
came out on NCAA first, and then they brought it into Madden because it was such a huge hit.
Yeah, now they've got a mode like that in most major sports games now
Yeah,
these
yeah, and
days. So
almost
it's
every
all
single
over.
one I
So
can think of now.
I mean that's how
The
we met pretty
NBA
much.
really.
It was NHL playing that mode.
Yep, yep. Madden, FIFA, you can do that.
Yep. The FIFA
And
one's
I
way
mean, and
fun.
they've even taken it a step further where you get to like create your player for online gaming and
Yeah,
you level
yeah.
them up with your online gaming with your buddies and going against human players and
Get
stuff,
different
which
clothing, different, all kinds of stuff you can customize now,
yeah.
unlock as you play.
Bring up the this new stuff that's coming in.
Okay, so here's one of the articles here saying some of the features have been scarce, but platforms, it's going to be on all platforms, all next gen and computer platforms. It says it's going to use the Frostbite engine, which is what Madden uses and some other
Okay.
games. Uh,
So it'll look pretty.
yeah, it should look good. There you go. Some regular modes like this will have modes like Road to Glory and Dynasty, and potential integration with Madden remain undisclosed until, like we
Okay.
said, like 2 days from now when
So,
they announce everything.
okay.
I think all the other articles pretty much said the same thing. It was just the the glory mode, the dynasty mode.
Okay, it says most schools featured in NCAA Football 14 will return. Those specific details regarding modes like Road to Glory and Dynasty, as well as potential integration with Madden, remain undisclosed. So we don't know on those things yet.
Yeah,
Okay.
this is not the most current number I saw from a more recent article when we were looking earlier was that over 12,000 players had opted in before the cutoff date. Oh,
I
no,
got
never
Kevin
mind.
Connors, Jesse
Yeah.
Palmer, and David Pollock are the announcers, it looks like, with Chris Fowler and Kirk Herbstreit. All right. I
Yeah.
like Kirk. I like Kirk. He gets a lot of grief sometimes, but he's tossed some praise to the Cornhuskers, which by the way, guys, if you don't know and haven't figured out yet, I'm a Nebraska Cornhuskers fan till I die hard since I was born. And so anything when we talk about these teams and stuff, I'm going to be a little biased. I'm not going to lie. So sue me if you don't like that. You had said something about NIL being included in the game this year. Did we have
Yes.
any details on that? Because that
Yeah,
makes
we
me
have
curious.
this.
Like, how are they going to incorporate that? Or I guess my better question, how realistic is it going to be with the real thing? And are they going to have like other teams trying to poach you like there's going on, even though it's not supposed to be going on? But are they gonna include that in the game to make it as
I,
realistic as possible?
I mean, I hope so. I mean, if they have like the what's it called, the transfer list or whatever that people can opt into after a season, or
Oh, the portal? Yeah,
the
the
portal, like
transfer
that kind
portal.
of stuff. This is the only like
Oh, oh,
confirmed
here we
thing
go.
here is this that we've
Players
found
from all
here.
134 FBS teams can opt in to be part of the A College Football 25 beginning today. They're going to receive $600 and a copy of the game. Oh, and me and Frog were wondering, are they going to give them just the base $70 basic game, or are they going to
Oh
give
wait,
them
wait. Hold on. What about
bring
this? I don't
that
think we
up,
even
bring
brought
that
about
up,
this. Yeah,
man?
here we go. This caused, I believe it was today, actually caused riots all over the internet about this game. And here we go. This is a leak that came out for the pricing
There we
on
go.
here on the game.
149.99 for the deluxe
Heisman edition.
Heisman edition is what they're calling it. What's in
Yeah.
that?
Normally it's like 3 days early access. That's about it. Maybe
I
some
mean,
Madden packs.
and okay, here's the sad truth of us gamers. A lot of us are gonna pay that. I'm I'm gonna pay that.
If you can get in 3 days early, if you can get in a day
If I get
early,
in
like
3 days early, I am getting that.
that's
And
why
and
that they've
that's
switched to that mode. Is it you can get a game you're excited about it even a little early before other people, you're gonna grab it, you're gonna get in, and you're gonna be happy.
I'm gonna pay. And a lot of you listening are gonna pay. And that's you're right, Frog. Like that's where we're that's where we're at. And uh I've only paid more than that one other time on a video game, and this was probably like 2003, 2005, a long time ago. And you guys should look this up. Maybe
I can
Froggy,
show a
maybe
picture.
you
Yeah,
could
I
bring
pull
it
it
up.
up right now. What was it called again? I was pulling up
It's
like the
called
control and stuff.
Steel Battalion. Steel Battalion.
All
And it was
right,
an Xbox game.
here we
It
go.
was the coolest Xbox game. It was the coolest. And I'm a big Halo fan, but this was the coolest Xbox game.
All right,
So
here's a picture here of. I'm guessing this is
So,
what you were talking
yep, this
about.
is it. All right, this is it. So,
Let me
for
zoom in
those of you
here.
that can't see,
There we go. If I zoom in, it gets smaller. So
okay, it's a picture of the game, and then this controller that goes across your lap,
yeah, okay.
and it has two joysticks, one for the right, one for the left. It has three pedals and 40 different buttons on this. And it's a mech game. So imagine like Mech Warrior or Mech Assault, okay? But it's a realistic mech game. So every button on there has a function. This thing literally looks like a cockpit to Star Wars TIE Fighter, right? Like, doesn't it?
Yeah, that's kind of I was thinking some kind of Star Wars ship or you got the joysticks, the pedals, the little throttle.
And an ammunition box that it all came in. The box is right behind it.
Oh, that's
So,
funny.
I mean, yes, you got a whole controller, and It was a cool game because it was a realistic mech game, and you had to like utilize both sticks, and you had to like control the whole thing with this huge joystick thing. And when it came out, I believe it was like $200 for this game. And this, like I said, was in like 2005. So that was like unreal. It might have been $300 to be honest.
Let's see.
And I freaking got it and I loved it. It was a cool game because like the campaign you had to play, but you only had like a certain amount of money you started off with, and if you lost your mech, you were done. You had to build a new mech with the money you had, and if you ran out of money, you had to start a new pilot. And it had a multiplayer mode, but you had to beat the campaign first, and then you could play on multiplayer. But it was just like the campaign. If you died in multiplayer, then you had to buy a new mech and you had to rebuild it. And if you ran out of money, you had to start a new pilot and beat the single player campaign all over again, which was extremely hard. But if you ever see it, get it, play it. It's a freaking blast. Anyways, sidetrack. See, here we go down that wormhole. That's not NCAA right now. But all right, let's go back.
All right, here we
$150
go.
basically for the Heisman
Yep.
thing. Biggest thing usually is it's 3 days early. We don't have confirmation on that yet. It could be just a
Yeah.
little artwork pamphlet. They've
Yeah.
done that too. So hopefully there'll be actually some more content. What I
Yeah, I
would
would
like
hope
to
so.
see is you get some past teams, so like the 1997 National Championship Nebraska Cornhuskers, or the
That'd be cool.
2002 Miami Hurricanes. I think that would be pretty neat
Yeah,
and
that would
worth it.
be. Or even like a if it's a physical copy, like maybe those ones come with a an autograph of a random player on the inside cover, or something like that would make it a little
Yeah,
more
that
worth
would
it to
be
me.
really cool too, I think.
Like something like that would be really cool. But if it's just like you're getting in the digital game and all they're saying is here, pay us this and you can play 3 days early, sadly people will do it. They'll be happy about it, but it's just too bad there wasn't more, if that's what it
Yep,
is.
yep, I agree 100%. I mean, these guys are making money hand over fist, right?
Oh yeah.
And let's get into the money talk.
All
So
right.
the whole reason we're talking about this is, well, why was there a 10-year stoppage of making this game? And it goes all the way back to
Two,
2009.
nine. Yep. Here we go. Let me pull
So
this up here.
we had mentioned earlier they didn't
Timeline.
put names on the players, but they made them look and play like the players. But they came out with this thing where you could download the rosters even on day one and have the entire roster names for these players. So pretty much everybody had the roster, right?
Oh
But
yeah.
these players were not getting paid for it, which a Nebraska football player by the name of Sam Keller. Yes, that's how I have some insider information on this whole ordeal. He played for Nebraska for 1 year. He got hurt halfway through the year. I think he like broke his leg or something. But didn't do a whole lot. But he was a very talented kid, very talented. He could literally throw a football out of the football stadium from the field. So he's very talented, but um, he got a lot of razz and stuff because he wasn't performing that well or as highly as anticipated. And so there were like these little kind of memes, but back then they weren't called memes, but of people just taking videos of just demolishing him in this game. And he decided he did didn't really feel like that was right, that people could play as him in this game and he wasn't making any money off of it. Which, if you ask me, I think he's 100% in the right in thinking that. Like, I don't want people to put my name on things and you know get credit for it or whatever, get money for it, and I get none. Like, that doesn't seem fair to me. I
Especially
didn't get
without
my
even asking you
promotion.
about it or saying anything to you about it.
Yeah, right. So on May 5th, 2009, as you can see on the screen, those of you that can't, former Nebraska football student athlete Sam Keller files a lawsuit against the NCAA, Electronic Arts Inc., and the Collegiate Licensing Company, objecting to the use of likeliness of former student athletes in archival footage as avatars in video games. in photographs and promotions. So basically, he's saying, hey, you guys haven't paid any of these players and you're making so much money off of these players. Like, we deserve a piece or you need to stop. And so, and there's three major companies that were listed there. There's EA, Electronic Arts, there's the NCAA, and then there's the Collegiate Licensing Company. So those are three different entities, and he's suing all three of them as a collective, if that makes sense. And so when he did that, another athlete, student athlete, but this time it was a UCLA basketball player. His name is Ed O'Bannon. He files a similar class action antitrust lawsuit, and that was July 21st, 2009. And NCAA had said in response to those, the NCAA categorically denies any infringement on former or current student athlete likeness rights. And that was Bob Williams, NCAA Vice President of Communications at the time. And if you guys are watching this this video is just the NCAA side. This has nothing to do with the EA side or the licensing company. This is just NCAA's responses to it. And when we get like further down this timeline, you're gonna see why it's just NCAA. All right, so let's go up a little bit.
Okay.
So on March 10th, O'Bannon and Keller request that it become a class action lawsuit, which basically means there's a lot of people that are involved, and this is going to be a lot of freaking money for you guys to fix. Is basically when it comes down to. But basically, there's going to be a lot of people that are going to be qualified to accept some of this money. All right. So January 26, 2011, former Cincinnati basketball student athlete Oscar Robertson, former Connecticut basketball student athlete Kate George, and former Ohio State football student athlete Ray Ellis joined the suit. So these are past players. They are no longer in school, but
Yeah.
this
I
game
didn't.
had been coming out for a while. So we start to see all these high profile names now.
Oscar Robertson, I didn't realize he was involved. I missed that part going through it the
Yeah,
first time.
so we're seeing a lot of names starting to pop up. And this, I think, when this happened on January 26th, this is when NCAA started to sweat. And I'm not going to read this whole thing, but it's basically it's the same gibberish every single time. It's not our fault. We're not responsible. We didn't make the game, blah
Yeah.
blah blah.
We're not making money off of it from
Exactly.
them.
But
Yeah.
they signed a contract with EA to allow them to use the licensing of the NCAA, which is the names of the
Hmm.
schools and all of that. And so like basically whatever they're saying here, don't pay attention to it. Because it's the same jargon over and over and over, and it's all legal jargon, and it's just them basically denying it and denying it and denying
Yep.
it. So we can kind of skip those things.
Going.
We got Bill
Bill
Russell,
Russell, another huge
October
basketball player,
6th. Who
Hall of
else we got?
Famer.
There's got to be
Uh,
some other big names coming.
um,
Bannon files a motion to include current student athletes in the class. Okay, so now the current student athletes are joining, seeking temporary trust for current student athletes to be funded with proceeds for playing in football and basketball games, which they claim is the sale of their names, image, and likenesses. They want the trust available at the conclusion of, okay, let me explain this a little bit. So basically what this trust is, so the players cannot get paid while they're playing because it's an amateur sport for name, image, and likeness at
yeah,
this time period. Just remember, we're in 2012. They can't get paid for, so like they can't go do a commercial, they can't get paid for playing, basically. But if they win this lawsuit, they're going to receive money for being in the game, which they can't receive money for being in the game because they would be basically
professional.
banned from the NCAA.
Yeah.
And so they have to basically have these trusts set up, which is a bank account that holds your money until a certain date. Once that date hits, you can pull that money out. It usually happens for like rich, spoiled kids that parents don't trust with
Like
their money
when they
yet, and
turn
they have to
18
kind
or
of,
something,
yeah, like,
stuff like
you know,
that.
something like that. So they have these trusts set up for these student athletes that are currently playing so that once they do graduate or stop playing, they can get that money, which is smart. Like that is smart because NCAA would be the type of company that would ban them for accepting money from the
Yeah.
lawsuit for them doing something wrong,
Yeah.
right?
They did something wrong. You got rewarded for it. So now they're getting you in more trouble.
Yep. All right, so scroll up. So that was
All right.
August 31st, 2012. Now we're in September 25th, 2012. NCAA files a case management statement to provide its perspective on the state of the case in order to prevent unfair and severe prejudice to the NCAA. So it's basically a woe is me lawsuit. Like it's not our fault. It's EA. Like, and they want to see their chances of actually like winning this case or whatever is what I'm getting from that, anyways.
Yeah.
October
Oops,
16th,
more.
files a motion to strike down and move to change the nature of the lawsuit. So they're trying to change the wording of the lawsuit and probably so that they're not held liable for it.
Mhm.
Um, and then November 8th, NCAA filed a brief in federal court Thursday reiterating its
Make it so they
position.
can't expand the lawsuit. That was them realizing we're in trouble. Let's stop more people from getting added.
Yep, yep. So just more
Just
legal
yeah, this
jargon.
legal, all the legal procedure stuff that people
Yep.
do to try and make things get drug out and eventually get dropped.
That's what they're hoping for, right?
Yeah.
They're just hoping that they get tired of fighting,
Yeah.
or run out of money.
And so yeah, poses professional. Okay, so this is kind of where it started talking about like where like I mentioned that you'd be a professional athlete because in their mind, once you get paid for playing a sport, you're not an amateur athlete anymore.
Correct.
That was
Yes.
kind of where they were right here. They're trying to oppose turning college sports into professional sports. And
So
I guess
I
that's in their
wonder if like
mind.
their method of thinking was, hey, like we can't lose this lawsuit because if we do, they'll receive money from us and then they wouldn't be able to play. So like that should be dropped basically. Is that kind of what they're saying there?
Um, I think so. Says they wanted to make this about professionalizing a few current student athletes to the detriment of others. So their scheme to pay a small number of athletes threatens college sports as they know it. So I think they're kind of saying that if we do this, then it'll threaten the rest of the landscape
I
because
think I think that's funny that they make this huge statement, right? But here we are, what, 2020 is when they basically said NIL is good to go and
I think it was like
it happened.
2020. Yeah, I can
But I
check
think
that
there were
too.
lawsuits that caused that to happen too. I think that was a whole nother lawsuit
Yeah, like
that,
there was a lot of legal stuff going on for a while. I remember kind of
and I
following a
think
lot of
it's even
that.
still going on. Like it's like there's definitely been some battles won by the college athletes, and maybe they're right. Maybe NCAA is correct with chaos happening if they allow NIL, which it sounds like there's a lot of chaos happening out there
Yeah.
from what I hear from like coaches at press conferences and stuff like that. The transfer portal, all of that
Mhm.
kind of stems from this lawsuit, this first lawsuit. It
Yeah.
started the discussions.
It said that they approved the NIL policy allowing student athletes to monetize their name and image likeness on July 1st, 2021.
Okay, so 2021. Yep. So,
So pretty
I mean, they've been
close.
doing it 3 years now, and I think it's getting a little bit more controlled.
Hmm.
And honestly, I think what's end up going to happen is these businesses that are spending a lot of money are going to realize like it's not as beneficial because you only have some of these players for like 2 years where they're popular, right?
Yeah, I think that Caitlin Clark is a really, really good example of all this because if you know anything about Caitlin Clark, she's a female college basketball player, was a college basketball player, now is a professional player. But she got into like when she was in college is when all the NIL stuff started to be approved and going. So she goes into the pros already kind of understanding how all this stuff works. And then you've got a player who won back-to-back championships in the WNBA, complaining that they're not getting the same treatment, the same whatever fairness or anything like that. And the thing about it is that Caitlin Clark was in college learning about it, going through it. So by the time she hit the professionals league, she already had a head start on all that. And
Yeah.
I just think it's interesting seeing that change from like this player. Her name was Asia something. And maybe she does deserve all that. Like they said, she's been back-to-back MVP, I believe it was. But because NIL wasn't allowed when she was in college, she didn't start all that when she was in college and work her way up into the professional sports with all of that, coming with her. And so it's
Okay.
kind of an interesting thing to look at.
Definitely. I think that's a great topic of discussion with this is, you know, how many professional athletes, professional football players are in the league for only a couple years and they think they've made it. So the money that they receive right away from their contracts, they've spent on, houses, really, 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 really nice
Oh
cars,
yeah.
and then, they're done because they get injured or whatever, and then they're broke. I mean,
Well,
they talk about the stories all the time where, I mean,
oh
even
yeah.
like all-star players are broke because they didn't handle their money well.
Well, what do you
And
think the average NFL career length is? I just pulled it up.
um, well, I'm gonna
Running backs
say,
are a little shorter, but just in general,
well, I think running backs is what, 3 years? So I'm gonna say the average
close.
player is probably 7.
Says the average career length of an NFL player is 3.3 years, according to Google.
Okay,
And
okay.
running backs have an average career length of under 2.6 years, and wide receivers an average length of 2.81 years.
And they're probably making, a little over 100,000. Like we're talking about like the scrubs, the ones that
Yeah, or
aren't.
the people that get injured quickly, like running
Yeah.
backs, receivers are getting hit a lot more.
Yeah, they're probably making, 100,000 a year, not
Yeah.
like
Well,
the quarterbacks, right?
well, yeah, like
Like,
even like high draft, I don't know the exact numbers, but you get a decent money based on how high you're picked, but it takes your second, third contract to really start making the bigger
yeah,
money
because
once
they
you really
had
make
that
a name for
rookie
yourself.
thing where
Yeah, the
there's a
rookie
cap to
scale.
how much you can pay rookies, huh?
Yeah.
That's right. That's right. Yeah, so I mean, let me ask you this. Do you think it's a good thing that these college athletes get a little taste of that to where they can learn how to market themselves, how to manage their money? So when they make it to the pros, the power isn't all in the owners and the big, the agents and the people, making the commercials, the advertisements, stuff like that. What do you think? Because I think it's kind of a good thing that they get a little taste of that.
Yeah, I think that I kind of see it kind of two different ways here. So for the first way, I look at it and I think, I played soccer through college. I had some potential AAA type offers before that, and I ended up having a knee injury, and I didn't end up playing much after that college brief point in college playing. So I think about it, and I think about when I was in high school, and I had these potentially realistic dreams of maybe playing at the next level with soccer, but at that time that next level has to be college and then the next level. So it's like to me at that point when I was in high school, I couldn't look and go, if I can just be good enough to get into college, I could potentially set myself up for maybe not the rest of my life, but for a good
You
future,
don't have to
with
worry
my
about
life
bills for a
from the
few
high school.
years.
Yeah. Even just for the college point, you can get your education. And if you do it right, if you get lucky, if you are smart, you may make more money in that time in college than you make the rest of your life if you don't make it professional or if you get injured or something. So, in that standpoint, I kind of think about it. I think it's a really cool opportunity for some of these players that, especially ones that may not be good enough to make it to the professional level, but are, star maybe college athletes, someone like maybe Tim
Yeah.
Tebow had a great college career, would have had tons of NIL money, I'm sure, all kinds
Oh
of
yeah.
endorsements. But then he got to the NFL and it didn't work for whatever reason, so he wasn't in the NFL very long.
Because he
But
didn't have a quick release.
yeah, I mean, that just there can be anything though for, an injury wasn't quick enough. The game's just too fast, too different, for all these different players. So I think it's really cool that some of these players are going to have a chance if they're smart to set themselves up a little better out of college. And then for the ones that are going to go all the way, I'd like to see a kind of an asterisk with this whole thing. and somehow get it worked into where, whether it's in your first pro deal or what it is for any sport really, where you have to have some kind of money management training or course or something like through your rookie season. Because I feel like, and maybe in college, if it's they're getting money net then, but I just think it would help them a lot. And I think so. I kind of think there's different mindsets you can look at it with, but I think overall it's a good situation as long as, with money, you see it in the professional ranks all the time. This person gets drafted high, gets his first big check, goes and blows it on drugs, gets into a wreck, you know, ends up in the hospital, or, so it kind of can go either way. But I think that if they continue to kind of refine the process and how everything's working, I think that there's a chance to give a wider net of high school kids going into college and college going into pro players a chance to be more successful even outside of their sport. And I think that's kind of an important thing to consider with all of it as well.
No, I think you're kind of spot on there. And I mean, kids are gonna make mistakes with their money, and
Hmm.
you gotta let them, right? But
Yeah.
I'd much rather them do that in an atmosphere where their coach is more like a dad instead
Mm.
of like a boss.
Yeah, that's a really good point too. I hadn't really thought about that part of it, but yeah, that's a really good point, I think.
Because I think in at the college level, there's a lot more camaraderie and team
Oh yeah.
accountability and those type of like little things that you don't get when you're in the pros because I mean you're an employee then, right?
Yeah.
I don't go into work and they don't tell me how to live my life outside of work. I'll do whatever they tell me to do for work, but outside of work, that's my time. That's me.
Yeah.
I do what I want. And so I can't blame a professional athlete to feel the same way, right?
Oh yeah.
And
But
so, they do kind of get that mentorship, I think, a little more attention. And I
yeah,
think the universities actually have better resources than these owners do because the owners are spending so much money on the players, like they're not
yeah.
going to spend money on a
Oh
financial
yeah.
accountant for teaching the players how to spend their money.
Yeah.
But the universities, like they have people on campus, I guarantee you,
Oh yeah.
that
For
could
the
teach those
athletes, even
things.
for the students, there's people for even just normal
Yeah.
students to go get help with whatever, when you're on campus. So
Yeah, a
yeah.
hundred percent.
And it's set up
Um,
more, coaches are a lot more, not that they're not at the pro level, but like kind of like you're saying, they're looking a lot of time, they look at their players and their team as more than just the one game a week. They're trying to help them. A lot of the best coaches, I'll put it that way. A lot of the coaches that I think of as really, really good coaches that I see or that I've had in my life even are ones that they cared about me. It wasn't just
yep.
the sport or the thing. And that, like you said, I think that is a
Any
little
good
little
leader.
more prevalent in the college, before pro type rank with football and other sports.
Yeah, 100%. Any good leader, and
Yeah,
when
there you
I
go.
say
That's
leader,
that's
I
the
don't
right
mean
word.
coach, I don't mean owner, I don't mean GM. I'm talking a leader. You can be a punter on the team and you can be a leader on the team. But any
Yeah.
good leader is going to look out for those on their left and their right over
Hmm.
themselves. And I think the great college football coaches, the Tom Osbornes, the Nick Sabans, the Kirby Smarts, like the
Hmm.
reason they're successful is because they set high standards and they hold their people to those high standards.
Yeah.
And when you have that type of culture instilled in your team, it bleeds throughout. It
Yeah.
bleeds throughout. And I know this from my own work experience. Like leadership is a mindset. It's not a role, it's a
Hmm.
mindset. And I think, in college, we have more leaders in college where we have more bosses in NFL. And there's nothing wrong with that. But
Yeah. I
for a
I
college student, you need leaders. You're teaching them how to be a good citizen in society,
hmm
and they have the fortunate uh ability to learn that through some of the best establishments America has to offer when it comes to education, when it comes to resources and all of those things. So
Mm-hmm.
it, being on a scholarship, don't get me wrong, being on a scholarship should be enough,
Yeah.
in my opinion.
Mm-hmm.
But also to make it fair against the companies like EA, I think they should get paid for that. And if you have the chaos that comes with it, you have the chaos that comes with it. We've evolved to this point and we'll continue to evolve into
Mm-hmm.
something that is going to work better because that's what we do. I mean, we're about to be in a what, 12 team playoff?
Oh yeah, and that
That,
was
like, how many
unheard of a few years
decades did
ago.
that take, right? Like, I mean,
Yeah.
we were on the BCS system. All right, let's have a computer decide who should
Yeah, for
face each other.
forever.
Right? Like now, like we have 12 teams that are getting in.
Uh-huh.
Just last year, it was only four teams. So
Yeah.
I think we continuously evolve. And with lawsuits like this is what allows those things to kind of happen. It's what allows those discussions to happen. Because going back to like the money side, we had mentioned earlier how much money EA Sports makes on this game. And
Mm-hmm.
I don't have exact numbers, but it's buku bucks,
Yeah,
hundreds of millions of dollars.
it's crazy.
It's a crazy amount of money. Okay. So EA is in this lawsuit. EA is like, you know what? We don't want to go through the whole court thing. We'll admit guilt, but we're not going to admit
Oh,
guilt.
whoa.
So they call that a settlement.
Yeah.
Basically, we're saying that, hey, we didn't do anything wrong, but we also understand where you're coming from, so we're going to give you a lot of money so we can just drop it.
Yep.
Okay.
And it's
And
actually in the billions. I just checked. So
billions.
in Madden, it said okay, so
Woo.
the net income is projected to be 900 million to 1.1 billion, but the net revenue is expected to be anyways, the revenue is says it's 7.1 to 7.5 billion from Madden NFL 24 and Madden Mobile. The projected increase that they get after all the costs is between 904 million and 1.4 billion.
That's insane. I've met one billionaire in my life. I
Mm-hmm.
met one billionaire in my life. He introduced me like this. He goes, "Hi, my name is Mark with a B." I go, "What do you mean, Mark with a B?" He's like, "B, billionaire." I was like, "Oh, okay. What a
Oh,
douchebag. What a slime ball. Don't ever, if you're a billionaire, don't introduce yourself. My name with a B. You're
yeah,
just a weasel." Okay.
yeah,
Anyways, going back to topic. So we're talking $1 billion,
yeah.
and they settled for, I think it was 40 million. Yeah,
In this
40 million
lawsuit, the
dollars.
NCAA one.
What's that?
Are you talking about the this
The
lawsuit we're
EA
looking at
one.
screen? Oh,
EA
the
one.
EA one. Yeah, it was. I think it was 40 million. Yeah, I think
Yeah, it was
that's
40
what we looked up.
million was the EA settlement. Now that 40 million did not just go to Sam Keller and O'Bannon. That 40
Yeah,
million went to everybody that was able to join the uh what do they call it? Class action lawsuit.
yeah,
So basically, like if they played during this
yeah.
time
There you go.
period, they
Here's the
could
settlement.
sign saying, "Hey, I played football during this time period."
Here's the settlement.
And
40 million
yeah, and they would receive a little bit of money.
in
And
2014.
I think they had said it was what, like $4,000 per person or up to $4,000. Yeah, here we go.
Yeah, it could be up to 4,000.
And then 100,000 for current and former athletes who
Oh, sorry, I'll
appeared
make that
in
bigger
EA
here.
Sports basketball and
There we
football.
go.
Wow. So these guys are making $1 billion with a B,
Yeah,
and these student athletes at most are gonna make $4,000
yeah.
from this
From
lawsuit.
this lawsuit, yeah.
I
This article
mean,
is from
I would accept
May
it.
30th.
Don't get me wrong, like $4,000 is $4,000, and
Yeah,
I'll take it. But perspective wise, man, EA kind of got off soft. Like, I mean, if I had $1 billion, yeah, I'd spend 40 million to get people to shut up.
yeah.
Oh my goodness.
It's
Just over
crazy.
12% will go to players in the class represented
Represented
by
by
O'Bannon,
O'Bannon.
the former UCLA basketball player. The final 10% will go to the class represented by former Rutgers player Ryan Hart and former West Virginia football player Sean Alston. 77% of the funds that are due to players after lawyer fees, lawyers got to get paid too,
Yep.
will
Presented
go
by
to the class
Berman.
of players represented by Berman, who sued the NCAA on behalf of former Arizona State quarterback Sam Keller. So Sam Keller did play for Arizona State. His final school was at Nebraska, if there's any confusion, because yes, I did say he played at Nebraska.
Yeah.
Um, all right, so let's talk about NIL and how we got to NIL. So this lawsuit happened. There was another lawsuit later on down the road about the transfer portal. Players saying, "Hey, I should have the right to be able to transfer schools anytime I want, and I shouldn't be punished and have to sit out a year." So that lawsuit happened, and the courts agreed with the players. So we now have a transfer portal, which has caused, if any of you listen to NCAA, football news, the past few years, it's caused a lot of chaos.
And
A lot of
excitement if you're a
chaos.
fan.
Yeah, I love it. I love it. And here's why. Here's why I love it. Because one, it gives power to the players,
Hmm.
which like
Definitely.
in the scheme of things, they're the low man on the totem pole. They're the ones being taken advantage of. So you can't get paid. Well, let me at least play where I want to play, and I shouldn't be punished because I'm changing.
Yeah. Or a coach
Right.
leaves or whatever. Yeah.
The second reason I like it, it forces coaches on good teams to have good culture. Because if
Mm-hmm.
you don't have good culture, you are going to have people hit the transfer portal. If
Yep.
people don't want to play for you or for your team, they are going to want to go to the transfer portal. And what I really like especially with my team, Nebraska, they got a coach that's all about culture right now.
Hmm.
And this offseason, he had zero players enter the transfer portal all spring,
Oh, wow.
which
I didn't
was
realize that.
amazing. Like no other school had zero. So like that tells me as a fan, things are going good. They're going right.
Yeah.
And I think as a team, that should tell you things are going right. At least people want to play there. And
Yeah.
go ahead. Go ahead.
Oh, I was saying it just really quickly, it gives the players a little bit of security and insurance for themselves as well. Because if you agree to go to this school, you get there and everything they promised you is the opposite of what they said. The program's run the wrong
Mhm.
way. You don't get the playing time you were promised, whatever. You now have a chance to leave, and people can't recruit that way anymore. They can't just promise everything
Yep.
and then not fulfill it the next day.
Yep.
I think
No,
that's a
no more
good
empty
good
promises,
thing.
coaches. Like the players have the power now. And I think that that maybe not how it should be. Maybe there should be more balance of power some way, shape, or form. But
Uh-huh.
I think the administrations have had way too many benefits off of these kids. And I'm glad they in 2009, there were a few kids that finally stood up and look at
Hmm.
some of the things that are happening. I mean, NIL for some of these kids is a huge deal because you're right. You had mentioned earlier, some of these kids aren't going to be NFL football players.
Yeah.
But if they can make, $100,000 through commercials and stuff because of their talents in college, man, they should have every right to be able to do that, in my opinion.
Yeah, I mean, it's like what we're doing now. Like, we didn't have to go through this whole process because we wanted to do this. Like, obviously, we're not earning money on it or anything. We're just starting it. But if we
Hey,
were
but
to,
if
you
anybody
know,
wants to give us some
yeah.
money, we accept donations. Go to Silver Gecko Gaming, become a subscriber, toss them some donations. We'd greatly appreciate it. But go on, Frog.
Thanks. Anyways, yeah, I was just saying that we have the right to do that. So, if you're just happen to be in college and you aren't an athlete, you still have the right to do something like that or to try to make money somehow. But if you happen to be an athlete and you're in college until recently, you just didn't have that same freedom. Like you could, there were things you could do, but you were very limited because of the fact that you were an athlete and in college. And I think that that's maybe it's not a perfect system. I'm sure it'll keep evolving, but I think that's where I kind of am glad that it's kind of going the direction it's going to give people that opportunity now.
Yeah, I agree 100%. And there might be some people out there, especially at the universities. I'm sure a lot of coaches, I'm sure there's even some parents that don't really like what's going on, but I'm sure
Uh-huh.
there's some parents that really do like what's going on too.
Yeah.
And what I love about this game the most coming out in a couple months is being able to play with my friends again, talking shit and battling for recruits, being able to reminisce and act like I'm a player on the Nebraska football team. Yes, my video game skills of the past 30 years have some sort of benefit for me to where I can whoop some Iowa fans' butt playing online and I can, brag all I want. I miss that. I miss sitting next to my buddy who's playing, his favorite team and being able to talk shit to each other and being able to toss down a steak and a beer bet or being able to, have a LAN party and just have a tournament with your friends. Like those were all things that were fun back in the day.
Oh
And,
yeah.
and games nowadays, like you don't get that. Everything's online. So when you play with your friends, they're at their house, you're at your house, which is more, we have more access to be able to play, but
Uh-huh.
there's that sense
It's a
of
different,
human connection that is missing, right?
yeah.
And I always refer to Facebook. So like when somebody trolls on Facebook or is trying to piss somebody off or says something that should not be said, that that person never in a million years would say that if the person they're saying it to was standing right next to them, right?
Yeah, definitely not.
There's no accountability with it.
Mm-hmm.
And it's the same thing when you shit talk a friend playing NCAA football
Yeah.
online and he's at his house and you beat his ass. You don't get to talk shit to him for 10 minutes because he's just going to turn off his
Yeah, he's just
Xbox
gonna power it off and be
and
done.
power off and then,
I'm going to bed.
man. And that's a part that I kind of miss about gaming nowadays that has changed and evolved that like my daughter who's she's 7 and she plays games almost as much as I do. We only limit it to the weekends though. But
Uh-huh.
like she loves video games and she's learning math and reading and all of that through video games
Uh-huh.
and she's never going to have that gaming party experience.
Yeah.
You know, buying the 12 pack of Mountain Dew and
Mm-hmm.
ordering a pizza
Getting the
and hooking up
Cheetos
your
or
LAN.
whatever.
Yeah, and just having fun sitting next to your friend playing, next to each other. I mean,
Mm-hmm.
back in the day, we had to play on the same screen.
Yeah.
Remember that?
Oh
Remember
yeah.
GoldenEye? Did you ever play
Yep.
GoldenEye, Frog?
Yep. GoldenEye or like Golden
Yeah.
Axe, like even older. I don't know if you ever saw
You'd make
that. And
you'd get like cardboard pieces
oh
and you'd
yeah.
make a cross with them. And then two people had to stand up in their corners, two people had to sit
Yeah.
down in their corners, so you couldn't see the other person's
We did
screen to
that.
see
We
what
tried
was at.
blankets. We tried all kinds of stuff to try and keep it from happening.
Yeah, but you know what? Some great fights and battles happen, and some
Oh
great
yeah.
truces and alliances happen.
Yep.
You know? But I'm so happy this game is coming out, man. I've missed it. I think the college football fan base and honestly just the football fan base in general has missed it. And I'm excited to see what's in it as well as where they're going to be taking it and where NIL is going to be, in the next 10 years also.
Yeah.
Like,
Even a year from now, like what's going to happen with the next college football game? Like this is just the first step because people see that it made, $10 billion on the game. Are they going to be as eager to take $600 to be in it? It's like, who knows what's going to
I
happen, but
better
it's going to
get
be
that
interesting to
Heisman
see.
copy if I'm only getting $600.
Yeah, really.
That still baffles my
The
mind.
one with your own
150
autograph
bucks.
in it. Oh.
Yeah, that like see that you got the right idea. Putting an autograph in like the cover of some college football player, that's a cool idea, but I don't think
Yeah,
EA is
they're
going
not
to do.
going to. I'd be shocked, but it
Yeah.
would be cool. But I don't see it happening,
They
unfortunately.
need to hire us geniuses to come up with ideas like that,
There we
man. So
go.
EA, if anybody from
Well,
EA is listening,
we'll only take like 1% of what you make, maybe
one
a half.
1% of a
Yeah,
billion.
that's
Hey,
all.
Frog,
That's all we
you're
want.
the brains of this. What is 1% of 1 billion?
Oh, geez. 10 million, I think.
Yeah, see, I think it is 10 minutes. I'll take 1%.
Yeah, really.
We'll
Yeah.
split 1%.
There we go. They'll get a great deal because it's such a low percent for them. We'll have a great deal. I think it'd work great. My family'd be thrilled. I'm sure yours would too.
100%. I might get to meet you. By the way,
Yeah.
guys, me and Frog have never met. Like the whole way we started this podcast, this is kind of a cool little note that you should hear. The whole way we met was through video games. We both play NHL hockey, and we just noticed we were running in the same groups. We were playing often together, added to the friends list, kept playing. Then we, joined a league together. Frog wanted to start a stream, and he started taking off with that, and here we are now. Like this is something video games are capable of. Somebody I've never met. I would have never met unless it was for video games. And now we've become really good friends and have started this podcast. Like a lot of people will rag on video game fans, but I think that stereotype's starting to go away. I think people are seeing the uses of video games. Honestly, I think maybe we need to change the name of video games.
Hmm.
Maybe that can be like our question of the week.
Yeah.
If
'Cause there's
if
just
we
more
had to
to it than
change the
that
name
now.
of video games, what would you change it to? Frog, what about you? What would you if you had to change the name of
Um,
video game, what would
hmm.
you change it to?
I, like the best video games that I've played, or the ones that I remember the most, are the ones that give me experiences with either myself and like a story, or with others or friends. Meeting you. There's always the toxic side. You're always gonna have that in any part of life that happens. But with you and I, we kind of started meeting the same people, and then didn't even realize we were kind of playing with the same people at one point. And then we found out that we knew all these same people because we were just kind of bouncing around to the people that we got along with and that weren't like that. So I think I would have to call it something like experiences, or shared media, shared experience, something with the experiences in there. Because if it's a great story and it's me playing by myself, it's this experience or this thing that I've had happen that makes me think or contemplate things that I think about for far longer than I play the game. Or like with meeting you and some of these other people that I've become really good friends with, that never happens if I wasn't playing NHL. I mean, if I didn't buy the game this year, I probably never would have met you, or a lot of these people that I talk
Yeah.
to pretty much daily now. So what about
Yeah,
you? Do you have any
you
thoughts
know,
on
my
a name?
my wife tells me all the time that I have more fun when I'm playing a video game with you guys and we're just cracking up, we're busting out jokes, we're literally having just a blast than like when I would go out to the bar with my friends.
Oh yeah.
And you know what? That's probably safer because like when I go out to the bar with my friends, it's usually a pretty wild night. So
Yeah.
it's probably safer for me to meet my friends online. I'm not gonna lie. But no, like there's definitely like a joy that I get from socializing online and playing with other people and the teamwork that's involved with that. And yeah, you are 100% correct about the toxicity, especially in certain games like Madden, NHL, where you have just a lot of
Competitive sports and
testosterone and
stuff. Yeah.
competition. Like you get some really toxic people, but that kind of is a testament of the world out there today anyways. There's a lot of toxic people out there,
Yeah.
and you just got to surround yourself with the good ones, and then you'll have a good time. And that's what I
Yep.
always try to do. That's my motto that I live by. If somebody's toxic in my room, I just leave the room. and
Yeah.
I go play with some other people. And I've built my friends list up enough to where I don't have to play with a bunch of random people anymore. I've got a core group that I trust. We're gonna have a good time. We're gonna we're gonna
Hmm.
talk shit, but we're not gonna take it personal.
Like those
And we're also
scrimmages.
gonna talk about philosophical shit. We're gonna talk about life shit. And I've got friends online I've met maybe once in my life, because we made an effort to meet each other. But, when I'm having trouble with, my marriage or my relationships and stuff, I can talk to them and let them
Yeah.
know what's bothering me. And, I just got a text today like, hey man, I need a vent. Can I call you?
Mm.
I, I had this. Sorry, Stag. I'm recording this right now,
Oh
but I'll
no,
call you
it
as
was
soon
right
as I'm
now. Oh
off,
no.
bro.
My
um,
bad. Oh.
so it's definitely had a huge impact in my life, and
Yeah.
and I think it's had a huge impact in a lot of people's lives. Now, what you
Hmm.
do with that is going to be positive or negative, and
Yeah.
you have a choice to make it positive. You have a choice to make it negative. You know, try to find some friends and have fun, and that's the whole point.
Yeah.
But my name, I think I have the perfect name for video
All
games
right.
if they
Let's
weren't
hear it.
called video games. You're gonna love this one. I think you're gonna love this one.
All right.
Social essence.
Hey.
Huh?
When you're doing it right, when you're having fun and you're socializing, I like that. Yeah, I think I like
Social
that.
essence. Took a little bit of the podcast, took a
Yeah.
little bit of like the social, put them together. Bam, social essence.
Yep.
I don't
I
know if
do.
that'll work, but
I don't
what do
know.
you guys think? Like those of you listening, we want to hear some of the names you come up with. If video games weren't called video games, what would you call them? That's a unique question. Think
Yeah.
about it. Please reach out to us, guys. This is our first episode. We have plenty more coming, but we want to hear from you. We want to hear your opinions. What can we do differently? What did we do right? I know there's got to be a few things in there. Um, Give us some feedback. Is my voice too high? Do I need to bring some bass in? Hello. But no, please reach out. Let us know what you think. Let us know what you want to hear. You can do that at E of G, so essence of gaming. So E of G podcast at gmail.com. That's E of G podcast at gmail.com. Also, after you do that, please head over to Silver Gecko Gaming. Give him a follow on Twitch. I believe you're also on Facebook, TikTok, YouTube, and
Oh yeah,
Discord,
TikTok as well.
correct?
Yeah. Yeah, I think everything is the same except for Twitter might be a little different just because of the character limit, but if you go to any of the other ones, they'll all be linked.
Sylvir Gecko Gaming.
Hmm.
Why'd you come up with Gecko Gaming?
Well, I have two leopard geckos and I have a crested gecko, and I've been researching for a few years now about breeding, and I'm kind of looking into getting into that with leopard geckos here in the future. And I've always loved lizards and geckos, and I thought I'd pull my real life animals into the stream. People can ask to see them all the time. I pull them out and let them hang out on my shoulder while I play games or while I'm streaming, things like that. And so far, people seem to be enjoying it, so I'm having a lot of fun with it.
Awesome, dude. I don't know if I ever told you this, but I have like hundreds of geckos out where I live, but
Oh,
they're
do
all
you?
like
Oh,
natural. They're
yeah.
everywhere. I live out in the desert, so
Oh,
that's
huh.
something we have in common.
Yep.
Um, all right, so go check that out, guys. Thank you again for listening. Please come back. We're gonna try to do this every 2 weeks to maybe one a month. We'll see how it goes, but please give us some feedback. Reach out to us. I am Tribal Gamer. He is the amphibian phenom frogman, and this is Essence of Gaming. Game on.